Hey, it's Rob. Welcome to Access Garage. Well, a few videos ago, you recall that we spoke about OBD1 codes and how to pull OBD1 codes out, and we used Oscar here, which is our 87 R1500 or C10 GMC pickup, Chevy truck, all the same, 87. It's got a 4.3 V6 throttle body injected. It's all original, and we had a boatload of codes, and our codes kind of coincided with the problems we were having driving it, the drivability issues. So what were our problems? Well, cold start, or just any start, it would crank and crank and crank and crank until you built oil pressure, then it would kick over. And that reason was our fuel pump relay on the firewall was bad, and that fuel pump relay is going to give you your prime circuit, and it's going to give you your fuel pump constant drive power, and the backup to that relay, so it doesn't leave you stranded. If that relay goes, oil pressure in the engine will also open up a switch and allow power to feed the pump, and you can get fuel then. And what was happening was that relay wasn't working, wasn't giving the pump power, so we had to crank it up until we achieved oil pressure. During cranking, then it would give power to the fuel pump, which would send fuel to the carburetor, and the vehicle would start. We had a code, and that code was for the fuel pump relay. We wound up replacing the fuel pump relay. We also had cold drivability issues. Get in it, get it started, and go to drive away, and the thing just did not want to get out of its own way. The first few blocks were 10 miles an hour, feathering the throttle, horrible drivability issues. So, was the engine seeing the correct temperature? Was the engine getting to the correct temperature? We weren't sure. History unknown in this car that sat for 5 to 10, we think closer to 10 years. Don't have a real good history on it. So we changed the thermostat just to make sure we had a new thermostat in there that we hope would work. New doesn't always work, but we're hoping that the new thermostat worked. And then we changed the coolant temperature sensor. And every time we changed something, it got a little better. So we changed that thermostat, and it seemed like now the engine was heating up all the way. However, we knew the engine was heating up, we were getting good heat, but what was going on? Well, it was still running crappy when it was cold. Coolant temperature sensor. So we changed the coolant temperature sensor. Now the vehicle's computer saw the cold temperatures and should adjust your idle air control, sort of like a choke in an old carbureted vehicle. And yeah, we had a code for the coolant temperature sensor, we had a code for the idle air control, but we put the coolant temperature sensor in, and what happened? Yep, it got a little better. Not great. Put an idle air control valve in, and now start it right up, and you can drive away because that idle air control valve is acting like your choke if it was a carburetor. And we had a code for each of those. We also had a lean code in the O2 sensor, but that could have been related to our choke not operating correctly. So once we fixed the choke, which was the idle air control in partner with the coolant temperature sensor and the thermostat, all those other codes went away, and only one code remained, and that is our throttle position sensor. Now, the throttle position sensor is a sensor mounted on the side of the throttle body, carburetor, right? And it's telling the engine's primitive computer where the throttle is, and it adjusts other things based on where the throttle is. And if that's, in some vehicles they're adjustable, and this one they're not. And if that thing is off, it's not really giving good communications to the engine that's got some computer control, and the transmission even that's got a little, because this is a 700 R4, so it does have some computer control, really lock-up features. The throttle position sensor is also telling that throttle position to the computer on when and if they should lock up the torque converter in the 700 R4 transmission. And if it locks up that torque converter too early, what are you going to get? You're going to get pre-ignition, which you should never get in these cars because they self-adjust. They're computer controlled. They self-adjust. You really shouldn't get a pre-ignition situation unless there's a problem. And we're having pre-ignition. You're cruising along about 20, 30 miles an hour, and you go to give it a little bit of heavier throttle, and we're getting some pinging. So, because we have the code, because every other code has been that sensor been bad because this thing sat so long, we're going to skip, because I'm lazy too, we're going to skip the diagnostics on the wires to make sure the wires going to the throttle position sensor is bad. I'm willing to bet on this one that the throttle position sensor is bad. So for like 40 bucks, get a throttle position sensor in, and I'm going to go with the standard TH41, real basic 3-wire throttle position sensor. All right, this is all it is. This little guy here, spring loaded. This goes into your throttle, right, and it's going to move with your throttle, and it's going to send the signals out these wires. You got a ground, you got a reference, and you got a power, and through the magic of resistance and crap like that, it tells the computer where the throttle is. I'm betting this is our drivability issue now, which really isn't a big issue. It's just that it's pinging. It'll probably run a lot better when this goes in there, and I would bet the check engine light's going to go out, because the check engine light with this seems to go on and off. So right now you start it up and it might not be a check engine light, and you go to drive away and the check engine light comes on. It's on most of the time, but on some rare occasions it's off, so I'm betting it's just a faulty throttle position sensor. Non-adjustable. The adjustable ones have ovals where these round holes are, so when you put the little screws through, you can adjust it this way and this way. And I did a video, if you look in the IROC playlist, the 88 IROC has an adjustable throttle position sensor, and you adjust it based on voltage. You move it back and forth, and you should get an idle voltage is where you should be at, and you adjust it to that idle voltage, and then you're good to go. Check that video if you want to know how to adjust one of these. This one's not adjustable. Some people drill these out and try to oval them out to make it adjustable. I don't think that really works. Just get that out of the way. Pull the air cleaner off. Okay, and you should be able to see right here. Can you see here? Or is the right here? I'll move the camera a little bit, but here's the throttle position sensor. It looks like it's got like a Torx bit on it. Of course, it can't be something standard. Kind of looks torque bitish. Let me move the camera so you can see it a little better. So now with a little better view, here's our throttle position sensor. It's got one plug, comes in from the top, and we should be able to get it off, hopefully without breaking it. Okay, little weather pack connector. Contacts are a little crusty. I'll spray it down with some contact cleaner before we plug it back in, because they are got a little green crusty stuff going on in there. That could actually be the problem, is the green crusty stuff. Before I replace it, I actually should just spray it out, start it up, and see if our problem goes away. We're going to do that. Alright, so it's too bad they're shielded contacts like that. Then you can get in there with a little wire brush or something, but I grabbed a pick and I'm just going to try to run the pick on it, on those contacts, just to try to clean them off a little bit. I am fairly satisfied that they are cleaner than they were. Let's start this thing up and see if we no longer have the code. Alright, so the check engine light came right back on. So I didn't check the code or run the code, because we know from all the other work that we were doing that the only code that remains is the throttle position sensor. So let's try to, this thing came off nice and easy. There it goes. Alright, got it off. Alright, looks like we're going to have to get a Torx bit on a ratchet, because it's sort of like a right angle, to get these off. They don't look like they're shouldered. I wish I had better eyesight. We're going to pull that off though. So it's a T20. I'm going to take a ratcheting open and wrench and a little Torx bit, and drop it. I say 20, 25, 25. Holy Jesus, why do they do this? Why can't they just use regular screws? Dropped it again. Okay, I got them loose enough where I could grab at them with my hands. Okay, after spending way too much time getting these screws out, they're out. There it is. Let's put the new one in. Where did I put the new one? Great. All right. What I did do was I found a little socket, 1/4 inch T25, and let's see if that helps us get it in. I'm also going to put a little, where the hell is it? What did I do with it? Let me see what I put, where I put the new one. Anyone? It was in my pocket. Yeah, here it is. It was in my pocket. Alright, so I got the new one. When you're putting the new one in, you got to make sure that the little thing is resting on the other thing. You know, the little tab. This tab is resting on the other little hook tab right behind it. And now I can try to thread one in. Put a little white grease on the tips of these small Torx bolt screw thingies to try to let them go in a little bit freaking easier, because they are very tight. Ah, this one's okay, good. So that little white grease did the charm, because I am able to hand tighten it all the way down till it seats, which is what you should be able to do. All right, let's take the wire. You know, when I was fighting with these Torx bits, I was doing some thinking, some pondering. This one doesn't snap into it like the old one did. Okay, that's in there good. I should probably put a zip tie on that, because the little locking mechanism is broken, or it's a different style. No, it's definitely probably broken when I took it off. Maybe, I don't know. I don't think it's going anywhere. I was thinking, you know, like, it could be the connector. That would really suck if it was the connector. I didn't have to change anything. Okay, that time I gambled and won. Like I said, all things pointed to these sensors going bad, just because that's the way it's been with this car. It was a $40 gamble. Everything else, it's been a bad sensor or a bad idle control valve, whatever it might be. What a bitch with those Torx things on it, though. Pain in the ass. It should have been like a 5-minute swap, and it took forever getting your fingers in there. A little crud in that connection. Cleaned it out with some with the contact cleaner, and tried to scrape it out as best as I could. I'm going to take a little dielectric grease and put it in there before I get everything buttoned up, just to prevent some corrosion in the future. But as soon as I started it up, check engine light went out, or service engine, whatever the light is, the light went out, and I think we're going out with this tonight. I'm taking the baby mama out. We're going to a Christmas party. I said, "Do you want to take Oscar to the Christmas party?" And she looked at me and she was like, "We have so many nicer cars than Oscar." But come on, look what the kids did. They took down the fall decorations and the hay bale and the corn stalks and the pumpkin gourd thing, whatever they are. And they set it up in the back of the truck. Like, we're going to a Christmas party. It would just look so nice if we went in this, I told her, and she said, okay. So, good thing this worked. Hopefully the tires hold air for the whole trip and we don't break down, because she'd be pissed if we did. That's it today from Axel's Garage. I got to clean up and then clean myself up, because we got a Christmas party to go to tonight. Link everything in the description below like I usually do, and as always, thanks for watching.